since we're talking about the action plan for change, and I know that you've always firmly believed that, you know, we're very quick to announce policy, we're very quick to announce a new law, but it's the implementation that is the challenge. And you talk about this, for instance, in the context of the education sector, a sector that, you know, you sort of, towards the end of your career, grappled with. In comparison to the challenges that you faced in coal, where the mining was underneath and the mafia was on top, in the education sector, the mafia is all over. So, you know, what is the disconnect between law, policy making and execution that we're seeing today?
You know, let me use a phrase which I've used in the book also. When British left this country, they seem to have taken justice with them and left behind laws and outlaws. And we have come to believe that all our problems will be solved by law without even going into the details of what law. Right to education is a classic example which has done more damage to education than anything else. All surveys have revealed that since that act came into being and till today, the actual education levels have gone down.
So it might have helped enrollment, but not necessarily learning.
No, I don't think right to education helped enrollment.
Okay.
It didn't help that either. There was such a rush to come up with the legislation, you know, because that hits the headlines.
Yeah.
You come up with a policy, you come up with a law, it hits the headlines, everyone likes it. My contention is, what we require is a definitive action plan. You know, if I were to announce a education policy, one line, providing quality education to every child in the country, thereafter, there has to be a clear-cut action plan for each region, clearly defining what needs to be done, how it will be done, who will do it, by when it will be done, and monitor it. Rather than making grand announcements, this should be done. Who are we telling when we say this should be done? Do it. I mean, the policy is an announcement.
Yeah.
I am more concerned about the action plan. And let me tell you that we did prepare action plans in the past 2 years, one for Jammu and Kashmir and one for UP. I am so glad that the Jammu and Kashmir plan is being put into operation. And it is a 42-point action plan where each point is clearly defined as to what needs to be done, how it will be done, who will do it, by when it will be done. It is not working in UP for some reason. But fact of the matter is, instead of announcing policy, I would rather go in for a detailed action plan. Why? The reason is that if a teacher doesn't go to school in Kerala, the chances that he or she will be lynched. They won't permit that. In UP or in Bihar, teachers, some of them, take it as a right not to go to the school. I mean, I know of instances where teachers have appointed their substitutes who go to the school. Now, how can you have one policy for Kerala and UP? It can't be. It has to be an action plan determined on the basis of the why of the problems of that region and prepare.
Is that the other problem? That, you know, we have this one-size-fits-all approach when there is so many Indias, there is no one India.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. You know, I have been of the view, provide flexibility to the state. And I'm so glad that the new scheme that has been announced by the government provides that Samagra Shiksha, provides that flexibility, which was not available in Sarv Shiksha and Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. This scheme allows the state governments to determine and focus on the areas that they want to focus. You know, sometimes we start believing that all wisdom lies in Delhi. My travel to 24 states in the country. It's crazy. I mean, bureaucrats are there in the state as well as here. But the point is, wisdom does not lie in Delhi. Wisdom lies in hinterland. I think that the central government should play the role of a facilitator, of an enabler, rather than directing. So what we come up with, grand ideas, we announce them. Not only do we announce that, we mandate them. Without realizing that the ground realities are very different in each state.
Since you're talking about mandating ideas and you're also talking about coordination between the centre and the states, let me talk to you about two sectors that you have worked closely with. And I'll start by asking you about power, because this is a sector that is faced with crisis which is not recent. You know, we've seen several variables of this crisis in the past as well. But, you know, what is your apprehension about the manner in which the Uday program was taken forward and how it's going to finally end up?
I'm a bit surprised that we had a model in the country which worked so beautifully, the Gujarat model in the power sector. You know, Uday scheme is based on what happened in Gujarat. And the hope was that this model would be replicated elsewhere. I'm not very sure whether the scheme was implemented with the intensity which it ought to. It ultimately got reduced to only financial management. That is, transferring the debt of the discount to the state governments. Beyond it, feeder separation, AT&T losses.
So the actual reform hasn't happened?
It has happened, but not to the level it should. I mean, the data I was looking at, around 13 discoms are doing worse than what they were doing before Uday came into being. So there is something wrong somewhere. Now, had it just been a theoretical model, one could have understood that it was difficult to implement. You had a working model. And I had even suggested as coal secretary, because coal was also getting impacted because of that. I had suggested, why can't states like Gujarat and Rajasthan be clubbed in the sense of bureaucracies of two states sitting together in a room, coming out a workable action plan on the lines of what happened in Gujarat. Chhattisgarh is doing very well. I suggested, why can't Chhattisgarh and MP sit together? Old state. They could sit together and find out what is happening in Chhattisgarh. So it's not from Timbuktu or West that we are looking at. We had successful models in the country. I think the intensity was missing. I think most of it was happening in Delhi, unlike it should have happened in the states. I say that because in coal, in 2 years as coal secretary, I didn't convene a single meeting of the state governments in Delhi. We traveled to the states, sat with the state government, sat with the officials there, worked out a detailed action plan in conjunction with their understanding of what we were doing, and it worked. It does work, because you have to sit with the state governments, not in Delhi. See, in Delhi, even secretary will never have time to spend the entire day. If I go to a state, I have nothing else to do but for sitting with the state government officials and working out a plan. I'm not very sure this happened in the Uday scheme. Uday was a fantastic idea. Uday, so to say, had worked in Gujarat. I think it should have worked in other states as well.
What about coal? And, you know, given the experience that you had as coal secretary and where you see things today, are you disappointed that there was a lot more promise and potential that could have been achieved?
You know, my disappointment is on account of the fact that something that can happen and had happened did not happen.
That's my point.
Why? Because you don't have a chairman Coal India for almost a year. How can you do that? I mean, I'm amazed that we didn't have a regular chairman for 1 year. And Coal India is the principal producer of coal. There have to be decisions that have to be taken. I think, to my mind, that is the single most important reason why coal, so to say, did not perform as it should have. Look at this. See, now you have a chairman Coal India, an extremely competent man. You have a very competent coal secretary. Coal production has started picking up. I mean, the momentum that was built in 14, 15, 15, 16 should have continued, would have continued, had there been a regular chairman Coal India. It's very unfortunate we didn't have one. Now you have one. It's picking up. The evidence is there for everyone to see.
You know, as someone who's spent 30 years of your life in various capacities within the government, you know, this business of maximum governance, minimum government, how does it become something that is tangible and meaningful more than a sort of slogan? And I'll ask you that in the context of the fact that, you know, when this government came to power, the questions that were being asked is that, look, privatization had atrophied under the UPA, and the hope was that we will in fact see the government getting out of businesses and so on and so forth. Hasn't happened. In fact, you're seeing a consolidation of public sector entities across various sectors. What's the way forward? Are you a believer in the government getting out, in privatization, bringing down the stake, bringing in more accountability?
I can give you my personal example, and from there you can... In coal, when I became secretary, there were nights that I spent in the office. After 2 years, I had only about 45 minutes of work. So I went to the PMO twice and asked them to merge coal ministry with the mines ministry. And I was not joking. I was very serious. I only made this remark that if you don't do that, and if I'm there, I'll create trouble to justify my existence. Now, this could be true of number of ministries in the government. I don't know why we are having unnecessarily these ministries. Coal ministry should have been, at that point in time, merged with mines ministry. It does not require a full-time secretary. Similarly, there would be other ministries which are not required. I have written in my book, in labor ministry, in first month, I discovered nothing happens. And I tried to analyze. And I came to this conclusion: we were all in labor, and by definition, we couldn't deliver. If we delivered, we'll be out of labor. So much of the labor ministry can also be wound up. I mean, someone has to sit down and get down to doing this. It can be done. I think the intentions were there, but actually it didn't happen on that.
You know, we keep debating this idea of big bang reforms in this country, and around the budget time especially, there are demands that come in from all and sundry on the next phase of reforms. But, you know, as you look at where India stands today, and I'm talking about economic reforms and then administrative reforms linked to that, because we're talking about policy and decision-making cannot happen in a policy vacuum. What would, to your mind, be the next steps that are the order of the day for us to be able to get over this 8% plus growth rate?
See, I have never believed in big bangs. I have never been a revolutionary. If I were a revolutionary, I'll pick up a broom and go and join a political party.
Evolutionary.
Fast evolutionary. Take decisions. I mean, in the name of big bang, we don't take decisions. If I'm telling you, I discovered this at the head of the PMG, There were no revolutions. But the fast tracking of projects had the real impact. You can do that. You don't have to bring about a major revolution.
So that's what I want to talk to you about. Because the UPA, this idea of policy paralysis, nothing is happening, it's taking too long, and that was a reality. And then you had the monitoring group under you, set up under the PMO, and of course, whether the PMO controls things, who's controlling things, that's a whole other debate. But how do you ensure that you actually get things done when they're supposed to be done, that you don't have cost overruns, you don't have time overruns, especially with infrastructure in this country?
I'll tell you. See, I'm a great believer in human resource management. If you have the right person at the right place for the right job, you can rest assured things will happen. Look at what is happening to the Swachhata Abhiyan in this country. Parmeshwaran Iyer is transforming that sector. It is not that it didn't exist before he came, but he's transformed it. Look at what is happening to Ayushman Bharat. The team there is doing a fabulous job. You have the right person sitting there. I wish Ajay Bhalla has a greater time. He will certainly transform. I can go on and tell you. It's a question of putting the right man at the right job. There are people available. But these are guys who will not go to anybody to get a job. Parmeshwaran Iyer didn't go to anybody to get a job. He was working with the World Bank.
Yeah.
He left that and came here. And look at what he's done. So, see, there are few things that you can do. The other thing you can only talk about. There's a lot of people talking about Big Bang Theory in terms of what reforms can be made. But whether they will happen or not, I don't know. This is something which can be done. You have people available. All you have to do is to get beyond your allegiance part and get the right guy for the right job. That is it. It is human resource management that is going to transform delivery here. You look at UPA 2, you were mentioning about PMG.
Yeah.
How did it happen? Because somebody or team sat there, and in that very environment which was vitiated, I'll tell you why I say that. Because as a civil servant, I do not have control over the environment.
Yeah.
I have control over myself. If that individual knows what he has got to do and is given appropriate support, he will deliver it in this very environment. It's good to talk about bringing about a larger change, major change, infrastructure, all that. It's nice. In debates and conferences, people come up with great speeches and everyone agrees with them. This needs to be done. Who's going to do it? British are not going to come here to do it. You and I will have to do it.
Yeah.
Then you have to identify those people. How do you think in coal, I had only 45 minutes of work after 24/7? Because I managed to identify officers within the ministry and managed to empower them. They had full freedom to do what they wanted to do, knowing fully well that if anything goes wrong, here's the secretary who will support them. I did that in education as well. If your officers have this freedom, you have to select the right officer, give them the freedom of operation. There are fantastic officers available. Look at what Chairman CBSE is doing now. At some point in time, there was a clamor to remove her. I mean, everyone was piling on her to remove her. But we stood by her. And look at the changes she is bringing about in CBSE. So it's a question of human resource management. I know it's nice to talk about big bang things and infrastructure changes and, laws.
Yeah.
But I am a great believer in picking up the right man for the right job. He'll bring about a change. There is clear evidence to that effect, and that needs to be followed.
I want to touch upon politics with you as well, because you have the pulse of Uttar Pradesh, and that's what everybody is talking about, what's going to happen in UP. And I don't know if a lot of people will know that you, in fact, were there when the guest house incident with Mayawati took place. So what do you make of this SP-BSP alliance?
If I knew what's going to happen, I wouldn't be sitting with you, interacting with you. I'll be sitting somewhere else. Now they are professionally employed to determine who's going to win. So I don't do that. But I think this combination is fairly potent combination. Whatever little that I've seen in UP, this combination that has emerged in UP is a potent combination. It has to be reckoned with.
Okay, it has to be reckoned with. Before I let you go, Mr. Swarup, for a lot of young people who might be watching this program, or for your peers who are watching this program, what would the singular message be? Because you end your book by saying that it was your father's decision to get you to join the IAS, and of course you over time grew to love this profession. But if you had a choice to do it all over again, you would pick the IAS again. Why do you believe that this is such a meaningful job still? And what would your advice be to those who are watching?
I would like to be an IAS officer because I can get away with anything. If I'm inefficient, I could still reach the top. If I'm efficient, I'll still reach the top. I can be honest, survive. I can be dishonest, perhaps survive. So IAS gives you enormous amount of flexibility to serve the people of this country. I don't think there is any profession anywhere in the world where you can impact so many people. Like RSBY impacted hundreds of thousands of people. Where would you get that opportunity? So IS gives you an enormous opportunity to derive satisfaction out of service of the poor. And what I would like to tell my junior colleagues is never give up or give in. Despite whatever that is happening in the political domain, I think if a civil servant does want, he can deliver things on the ground. That's their job. It's not pure honesty. Honesty, a civil servant has to be honest. But more than that, more than honesty, he has to deliver it on the ground. He's paid for delivery on the ground, not barely remaining honest. That's non-negotiable. He has to be honest, but he has to deliver on the ground.
He has to deliver on the ground. Anil Swarup, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us, and we wish you the very best of luck. Thanks for taking our time to join us here in the CNBC TV 18 studio. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this special edition of Political Exchange. From all of us here for now, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.